Hello friends and welcome back to my channel. So this is the second timeline reading for Pisces. So I do strongly recommend that you go back and watch version 1 before you watch this one. Otherwise I feel like this is going to make absolutely no sense whatsoever. It kind of is dependent on having watched the first reading. I mean, maybe not, I don't know. I'm a bit out of breath. I'm sorry if you can hear that. I'm just a little bit under the weather, so I'm getting out of breath a bit easily, but also kind of, if you notice, my cards are a little bit wet. I had the window wide open because it was so muggy and humid, and then we had a downpour of rain and it rained inside onto the cards, so yeah, just things are happening. Okay, Pisces. So it kind of has this, if you were going forwards in version 1's reading, this has kind of like a starting from that end point and going forwards, but you're moving back in time, right? Or like you've gone to a destination and now you're going back the way you came, right? Just the way the cards have come back out. So all the cards from that original reading are still there. All the cards that, so the original reading kind of like stopped halfway and it was like you had to go back and then go again. And now you've got all the cards here, but it kind of still ends like in a really good way, because you still end with your own sovereignty, right? So feeling in control of yourself, feeling in control of your life, feeling like you've got a handle on things, feeling like you're knowledgeable, all that good stuff. So actually you end up with the same outcome as the first reading, which is incredible considering how many cards are actually on the table. But we're seeing more of the challenges in this reading. So you had two cards that said resilience. So this card here says resilience, and where's the other one? This one. So these two cards that say resilience, if you can see that. From different decks, both say resilience. So I feel like whatever this journey is for you, it is taking a lot of your strength, a lot of resilience. So again, you've got strength here, and down here on the underline as well, you've also got strength twice. So strength and resilience, which is what I say about Piscean energy quite often. I associate it with polar bears, and that to me means like perseverance, kind of 9 of Wands energy. It's like you're built for the job, right? You can stick this out, right? That kind of energy, excuse me. So it could be that life has been a bit hard on you for a while. You could have been fighting some, I'm hearing legal battles, but there's nothing to say legal here, but it's what I heard. You could be fighting some health battles kind of thing. But yeah, this idea of like persevering and knowing that you're not alone. I would say that the main message of version 2, which is this reading, is through some experience that you have, and it could be a very profound experience, you now know that you're not alone. That's the key takeaway, because you have this card here, you're not alone, right? So energetically linked to someone else, or you have spirit guides helping you, or something like this. You're not alone in this, which is interesting because you have solitude here. So what really was quite profound to me as well was I asked for a song. I was like, explain this to me, because I'm not fully understanding the message that I need to give to Pisces. And the song that came through was Alone by Alan Walker. And I just grabbed my phone to read you the lyrics. It's far too warm. So it says, lost in your mind, I want to know, am I losing my mind? Never let me go. If this night is not forever, at least we are together. I know I'm not alone. Anywhere, wherever, apart but still together, I know I'm not alone. So there is this profound connection for you when it feels almost like a mind reading connection, because it says lost in your mind, right? Lost in your mind. Am I losing my mind? So this idea of shared consciousness with a specific other could be a group. You do have, sorry, I'm just shifting around on my chair. You do have this Star Brothers card. Horus energy, protection, loyalty, safety, and trust. There seems to be something significant about the birds, because if you look here, these two cards that came out next to each other have these birds. And it's funny because yesterday I was I can't even remember what made me think of this. I think it's because I've been trying to befriend a crow at the park. And I was joking and saying that I wanted to get into falconry. And I was saying I'm going to get one of those, you know, falconer's gloves and like go to the park and like, you know, that kind of thing. So I don't know if it's something specifically about falcons or what other kinds of birds, like kestrels or hawks. These kind of birds of prey could mean something. Maybe Birds of Prey, the film, I don't know. But it could also be something to do with actual brothers or star family. If you have a brother or brothers who are on the other side, if that could be meaningful to you. The reason why I'm really talking about this idea of like brothers and family is because from my own deck you had the oak tree come out, and now the oak tree talks to me about ancestry. It's kind of like the oak tree represents your own body, and the roots go down into the earth, symbolizing what has nurtured you, right? What nutrients helped you to grow. So parenting, your community, literally food and nutrition, education, all these things that developed you into who you are, right? What did you draw upon? And then the branches symbolize your growth, right? Your future, your potential, even children, if you think about how trees create fruit and seeds and things like that. So potential energy. So with it having clouds, it could be star brothers, right? Oak tree being kind of like DNA or ancestry, and clouds being Kylo, so of the sky, right? Of the so I'm thinking of like the Latin word for clouds, right? It's like something like Kylo, Kalo. Maybe that means something to you, but it's like making me think of Kylo Ren, right? Or it could be the clouds can indicate muddled thinking or confusion. So there could be some confusion about somebody's ancestry, about somebody's DNA, about their lineage, about family history. And then with the snow and the wreath, snow talks to me about sometimes silence or a cover-up energy. So there could be something going on in somebody's ancestry, their family history, where, you know, things aren't adding up, or there's something that's, you know, something that's confusing. It doesn't make sense, you know. So, but when you try and ask questions about it, people dodge it. It's kind of like something that's not spoken about in somebody's family history. And then the wreath symbolizes success and victory. So it could be that perhaps a significant person in the family, or the family in itself, had some kind of success and victory that perhaps didn't quite make sense. It's like, well, why did we get that? Why did dad get that promotion? Or why do we have this money? Where did this come from? Or something like that. So a snow and wreath as well makes me think of like Christmas. So take anything there that makes sense and leave anything that doesn't. It could just be I'm reading it wrong, or it's somebody else's message. But you also have the beach as well, and the beach is about, it can mean a lot of different things. It can be ready for an adventure, but it can be symbolic of kind of like nostalgia and goodbyes and remembrance. So anything there that makes sense, kind of just run with it. Anything that doesn't, just kind of leave it on the back burner. It may sort of crop up later. Okay, so the really profound, I keep saying the word profound, which I feel is significant to your reading. There must be something about the word profound, like you are having a profound experience. I did talk about spiritual awakening in the first reading, and how that feels like this life-changing, I'm hearing purpose again, this concept of purpose, this life-changing kind of evolution of the self. What really struck me in between your readings, after the first reading, I went down and tried to have a nap, tried to have a sleep, because again, I am trying to do the self-care thing and recover from being poorly, and catch up on my sleep and things like this, because I haven't been sleeping well. And I couldn't get to sleep, and I ended up looking for a film to watch. I actually tried to look for the film Contact, because I have seen it before, this Jodie Foster film, and I mentioned it in the first reading, and I couldn't find it for free on any of my streaming services, but I did stumble across a film that I've never seen before and didn't really know anything about, called Arrival. So I watched it, I think I watched it on Netflix. Arrival on Netflix. And basically, I'm going to give spoilers, but the film is about this alien visit, right? these aliens come down to Earth, and there's a woman who's a language expert, and she's asked to come and meet these aliens and to decipher what they're saying and create some kind of communication between them. But everything that I was talking about in the first reading, especially to do with time and the time master and things not being linear, and being taught how to control time and how to manipulate time, and all these ideas were kind of a lot of the things that came in through the version 1 reading for Pisces were in that film. So I do predict films quite often. This is something that happens with me quite often, but that doesn't mean it's not also meaningful to you, right? I could just be getting verification that I am channeling correctly through the film as well. It can be multiple things. So I'm going to kind of tell you what happened in between the readings. So I lay down, I was drinking valerian root tea because I was trying to kind of like knock myself unconscious. And I had this feeling of like, you know, somebody taking like sleeping tablets, or perhaps an induced coma, right? Or even just going into a meditative state. Because I got the song Going Under by Evanescence, which was kind of saying that word as well, evanescence or effervescence, could be meaningful. So I had this feeling of like, I'm about to go to sleep, I'm about to go to the other realm, was the way it felt. But ultimately I didn't. I ended up watching this film. So the film started, and she says, the opening lines are like, we are bound by time and by its order. And it mentions memory, and she's saying, come back to me. And then she says, now I'm not so sure that I believe in endings and beginnings. And so it really, really felt like, oh my goodness, that is what came through in Pisces' reading. Also, the song Heaven is a Place on Earth could be meaningful to somebody. And then the actress, the main character, meets this guy called Ian, who's also going to kind of like go and learn about the aliens. And he's a theoretical physicist, which is what I was kind of saying about the Time Master, right? I said he understands physics. So it was just so similar to the reading, and it freaked me out a little bit. So you could be meeting somebody who's a physicist, which is what I was saying in that reading. I heard Schrodinger's planet. So it was making me think about Gallifrey, if you know, kind of like the mythology around Gallifrey in Doctor Who. But Schrodinger's planet. So it was saying to me, if you know Schrodinger's cat, it's like the act of witnessing something makes it true, right? When we perceive something, it makes it reality. And so Schrodinger's planet was like, the planet only exists if there's someone around to see it. A bit like if a tree only falls in the woods, does it make a sound? So there's something about perception, and I don't know, I can't dig any more deeply into that. It was a side message. It said, I wrote, it both exists and doesn't, depending on how you look at it. Although the spaceship itself looked like a massive black hole in this film, which I kept on talking about black holes in that reading. And then, so she's talking to these military experts that have brought her there to talk to the aliens, and they're putting a lot of pressure on her to work quickly. And she's explaining, he's like, right, explain. She's trying to explain, why am I teaching them certain words, right? Because she's trying to teach them the basics of the human language. And the guy's going, I need to explain this to my higher ups, explain this to me. So she goes over to this whiteboard and she writes this sentence on the whiteboard. And the sentence is, what is your purpose on Earth? This is what they want to ask the aliens, right? Why are you here? What is your purpose on Earth? But it freaked me out, because then she broke down all the different words. Like, we need to teach them what a question is. We need to teach them what your means, right? And then she's like, and the question we're asking is purpose. So the word purpose. And I was like, I can't believe the focus on that word, because it was what I was channeling. So, sorry, I'm a bit, ugh. Unlike speech, so she's saying the aliens respond with pictures. I mean, it could look like a letter, right? But and they say, and they're kind of questioning her about this, and she says, because unlike speech, a logogram is free of time. Because when we speak, the words have to come out of our mouth in a in a straightforward line, right? If we put a sentence together, we have to say, what is your purpose on earth? And to speak those words takes an amount of linear time, but an image, a picture, as soon as we witness it, it's known. Okay, so this could be talking about something to do with the power of imagery over the power of language, which has a demand of time, right, to the listener. And then in the final session with the aliens, they say there is no time, many become one. So it's not that they're running out of time, they're saying time doesn't exist. We don't understand time in the way that humans understand time. There is no concept of time for us, right? So that was fascinating as well. They say Louise sees future, the name of the character. Louise sees future. Louise has a weapon. Weapon opens time, because the language is limited, right? So the weapon turns out to be, she says, like, when she understands it, it's like all of a sudden she understands them. It's like she can understand their language, and she has this epiphany, and she says the weapon is their language, and they gave it all to us. So they gave her the entire language system, and kind of like projecting it into her head. So it's like they've given them this brilliant gift in order to understand them and to be able to communicate. And because they use the word weapon, the humans were kind of reacting badly and aggressively, because they were like, oh my goodness, they're talking about weapons. But they didn't mean weapon, they meant tool, right? There was a misunderstanding of the language. And she says, when you learn their language, you begin to perceive time the way that they do, and time is not linear. And then at the end she says, despite knowing the journey and where it leads, I embrace it and I welcome every moment of it. And the film ended and my battery was at 69, which made me laugh because I was talking about that in the previous reading as well. So I just had this really intense experience of all this verification of everything that I'd channeled coming through that one movie that I've never seen before in my entire life and knew nothing about. I know that I channeled that movie because it was so similar to what I'd been talking about in my readings. So in the first reading, everything was broken down to a molecular level, right? The spaceship had crashed, people were picking up the pieces. So this could talk about a situation for you personally, Pisces, where maybe you feel like your life has crashed, or your life has fallen into pieces, or you're left to pick up the pieces of a relationship, but you're doing it all by yourself, right? So it's kind of like you are repairing the damage that has been done, but again, it feels like a really heavy burden on your shoulders. It feels like you're carrying a lot of weight. It feels perhaps like you're doing it all alone, but you're not alone, because you've returned from some kind of unknown future, or a future that hasn't happened yet, where you've made this connection, right, with the Time Master who's granted you your sovereignty, but you perhaps don't remember this. And so this is to remind you that you're not alone, that although you went back in time, or although that part of your life hasn't happened yet, you're carrying the experience of it into this new timeline, this fresh moment. You're not alone, right? So it's like your star family is here. Your connection that you've made with this higher self or these others is always, you only have to experience it once, and then it's with you forever, because time, a second is eternal, right? It's like it's all happening in the same moment. And you have that in this reading as well. So if you remember the last reading, I was talking about consecutive numbers, right? Consecutive time. The minute hand clicks from 40 to 41. It's happening here, but it's the first card and the last card. So do you remember I was talking about how Jodie Foster in that movie, she drops through the device and falls out the other side, and to everybody else in the room it was in an instant, it was in a second, but to her she had a huge experience, like an extended conversation with somebody on the beach, because she went into a a space where time acted differently, which this is not make-believe, this is not fantasy, this is the theoretical physics, right? This is what really does happen in space. Time works differently when you approach a black hole. So this is not pseudoscience or fantasy, this is how time works. But somehow you're managing to have this entire readings experience in a fragment of a second, because you are the time queen, right? If you want to look at it that way, or you are sovereign, you hold the same power or authority or status in the universe as the time master, because he shared his knowledge with you in an instant. And even that in itself is what happened in that movie. The aliens give them everything in a moment, right? Their entire language in a moment. I mean, it's more than a second, but still. So you're reading, right, back, picking up the pieces, having had this experience with your soul family. Wind is here. I don't know why. I feel like it was really just here to confirm, excuse me, the birds of prey, but it could just be you feel like you've flowed in a different direction. You are being, maybe you're being whisked away. You know, the winds of change have taken you on a new journey, a new route. And then the same card is in the same place. So this Four of Fire. So this is looking to me like perhaps a landmark, because it's in the exact same place in the reading, right? So it's like the signs and synchronicities that led you to that place in the first place are still there. It's like having amnesia or something, right? And having to find your way back home, but you don't really remember the route. But as you're walking, you see these recognizable landmarks, right? It's like your intuition, the signs and synchronicities, the fairy who played the music is still leading you, right? So it's like you pass by that same place again and it's familiar to you. So you know you're on the right track, right? And it's a reminder as well, when you see her, right? When you see that sign or symbol, it's reminding you that the universe is guiding you, even though you're not sure exactly where you're being led or where you're going. It's like the communication is still there, right? So there's something as well about the moon, because you remember all this stuff about kind of like, it was like you had to fly through the right portal or get through the right gap. So it's got that kind of energy again of like the moon is like, it feels a little bit like a key, right? It's like decoding the language or finding the right key that fits the right lock in order to progress. So it's like it has to be, maybe it has to be a full moon, right? It has to be the right time, or it has to be the right shape in order to move on to this next stage, which feels a bit like going back, right? Going back in time. And so perhaps feeling very alone, but being reminded you're not alone, but perhaps you are physically alone in a moment. There's something going on here as well. So here's that ball again. It's something like reminding you of your strength and reminding you of your resilience. Although you may feel like you've got the weight of the world on your shoulders, right? A huge amount of responsibility. Perhaps you're in some kind of position where there's a lot of people who rely on you. It feels like you're bearing, maybe in this lifetime, in this physical realm, you feel like you've got the world on your back, right? The burden is on your shoulders with this solitude card, but it's almost looking to me like, how do I show you this? So you see how it's like up and down? It's coming through a little bit like this, right? So it's like, it's like you can flip it either way, because there's two realms or something like this. I can't quite understand what it's saying with the magic stream. So you see how similar these two cards are. It's you're not alone. There's this mirror image, or there's this what is it? This feeling of maybe whatever this structure is, this landmark, perhaps it's changed over time. Perhaps it doesn't look exactly the same as you remembered it. It's like if you remembered it as a house, when you see it again, it's a waterfall now. But it's, when you look at They're giving me a song. Hang on. It's when the landscape changes, rearranges. Is it Stronger by Sugar Babes? Who had that song? Give me a second. It is Stronger by the Sugar Babes. It was somebody's song at the end of the reading, but it's not in my notes. I feel Sugar Babes. Who had... I feel like it was... Hang on, whose is this reading? I feel like it could have been Capricorn. Excuse me. Sorry. Yeah, I feel like it was Capricorn's reading. Perhaps. I can't be sure. It could have been... No, it was Aquarius, because she had like a child, so they had the stuff about children, right? And Sugar Babes. It was Aquarius's bonus song. So yeah, it says, I'll make it through the rainy days. I'll be the one, resilience. I'll be the one who stands here longer than the rest. When my landscape changes, rearranges, I'll be stronger than I've ever been. And you've got strong, like the strength card right here and in the underlying. No more stillness, more sunlight. Everything's going to be all right. I know there's going to be a change. You better find your way out of your fear, which is coming out at the end of the reading. Find your way out of your fear. If you want to come with me, then that's the way it's got to be. I'm all alone, solitude, and finally I'm getting stronger. You'll come to see just what I can be. I'm getting stronger. So it's the same. So some of you might be like Aquarius, Pisces, cusp, or have both placements strongly in your chart. But it feels like a continuation of their reading as well. So yeah, so it's kind of like bearing your burdens, your earthly responsibilities and duties with resilience, because that's what you came here to do, right? You came to the Earth School to learn about the human experience, which is a tough one, right? We all have our responsibilities, our burdens, our things that we need to do and look after. So this to me here, the Earth School, it feels a bit like... in the first reading, it came through like this, right? It was like you go through the portal, you're up in the atmosphere, you fall to Earth, and your spaceship crashes. But now it's like you start with the picking up the pieces of that crashed situation, and then it feels like you fall back through a portal, right? You go back through the Ghostlands, right? You go back through the limbo, back through the purgatory, if you remember the train station, right? It's like the future and the past. It's like this in between no man's land. And so somehow you manage to find your way back to the no man's land, and you fall back down, back into this body, this existence, once again picking up your burdens, but doing so with a lot more strength than you had before, because you know that, okay, so it appears that you're doing it alone, but this connection's there. And it feels like you've brought the Time Master with you through the tunnel, because again, remember how I said it's like he's the one who created the tunnel in the first place. He's the one who created the wormhole that you've traveled through, or the psychic connection that you've traveled through. You know, he's the one who helps you travel between one realm and another. He's the conduit, or the master of the conduit, right? He created the conduit. So it does feel like he's either that connection's still open to you, and it's like this as well, right? So it's very, very similar, because in the first reading it came out, these were the first two cards, right? It was like the portal opening up in front of you, and you're going through into this wormhole kind of thing, or this subway station, and now it's coming through like this. So it's like the cards are the same, but the order of them is slightly different. It has a slightly different meaning, because it's like, has he followed you through, or has he somehow got stuck in between? I want to say his ability to manifest in your reality and be perceived is more clear to you now, perhaps, because in the initial reading it felt like a shock, right? It kind of came through like this. it felt like maybe getting a glimpse of your future and it being a shock to you, or you know, being able to access this like liminal space, or the place beyond the liminal space. But you know, like putting on a VR headset for the first time, it could be a shock. It's like it's disorientating, it's unfamiliar. And so the Time Master was really doing the best that he could do to make you feel like you've gone there on your own accord, but also to appear familiar to you, to appear as something that you would recognize. It's funny because in that film she's having these glimpses of the future, right? And they're presenting as memories, but they're actually glimpses of the future. And so this idea of like being able to remember the future, I know this has come before in previous readings. It's like future memories, like future nostalgia, that Dua Lipa song. So it's coming through like this now, right? So it's very clear to you, I want to say now, that because if you look at the colors of these two cards, it's like he's very much of that other place, right? He's very much of the space station spa. He's like he's imbued it with his energy, but also the energy of the place is imbued with him. There's this, it's very clear because you're recognizing the energy, and you recognize his energy as the energy of this place. And this place was somewhere that felt like a very healing place, but also perhaps of the afterlife or of heaven or something like this. So what am I trying to say? I don't know. It feels like you've brought him back through with you. You've brought him back through from the ghostlands. Maybe because you had, ooh, baby, do you know what that's worth? We'll make heaven a place on earth. So it's like you're trying to bring the values of the heavenly place into the earthly reality because it's better. So again, I was talking about how perhaps Pisces' kind of like special ability is that they are a dreamer. They are they have a rich imagination usually, or Pisces energy does. Again, the extent of how much you have this as an individual depends on your personal placements, but Pisces energy by itself is this kind of like the ability to dream of heaven, right? What would heaven be like? What would my personal heaven be? And then how do we kind of almost like magician energy, right? Or manifestation energy. How do we bring that ideal, that concept down into the earthly realm that feels like it's so full of like burdens and suffering and sacrifice? It almost feels like earth feels like hell. But how do we bring these values down and treat each other like this, or relieve the burdens, right? It's like these seem to be having an intention to perhaps give this gift that you receive from others, the ability to be the Time Master, right? To understand cause and effect, or the butterfly effect. You seem to be wanting to give this gift to the other people who are carrying the burdens, because it's like you've seen a glimpse of a better future, right? You've been shown this different way of being, but it kind of feels like people perhaps aren't listening. It's like maybe people are so bogged down with the day-to-day responsibilities, their own personal burdens, their own personal burdens, or you know, it's like their nose is so focused on that grindstone because it's what they have to do. They haven't got time for the little girl trying to give them a butterfly, you know? It's like, what am I meant to do with that? I've got this thing to take care of. So you have that sweetness energy because you're not alone, because you've met the Time Master and you're his equivalent now, right? And you're being encouraged to enjoy this connection, enjoy the opportunities for you to have pleasure, right? And make love to life and enjoy that kind of Venusian energy. And to be awakened, to be an enlightened person, perhaps to shine a light. Do you remember he had like the knight and the torch? Maybe to show people that there's a better way of being. And then the Six of Fire actually has this meaning of being very successful with this, people cheering you on. You do actually have wreath, right? I always come through like 8 of fire. I was going to say it's like communication as well, but it's not. So again, you have this feeling of kind of like going back into the flow. Do you like this, the flow of the magic stream, right? The flow of going where life takes you, or trusting the signs and symbols and following your intuition on that. So you're back into flow, being encouraged to enjoy this, right? There's all this stuff about enjoying it. Enjoy the experience, the human experience perhaps. Enjoy the sweetness of life. Don't focus too much on the burdens, but look at it's all this like healing energy as well. It's like go along for the ride almost. Allow time to sweep you wherever it's taking you. But then you have this, although this is really, really positive and really, really good, you have this moment where it's like you hit the fear threshold, right? And this is normal. It's human to do this. It's like, things are too good. I'm going to muck this up. I'm not ready for this. I'm too ugly. I don't fit in. I'm too awkward. It's like all these fears, like, just look at these. All these fears, like with the Medusa energy, it's like, but I'm grotesque, I'm a monster, it's like it's kind of like dark thoughts, right? All these, just look at like the way she's holding herself on these 2 cards. I want to say it's just fear threshold, right? It's like maybe life hasn't come easy to you and you're kind of showing the burdens of that, or perhaps you feel, you've got some fear around letting go of these responsibilities, or it's kind of like the devil on your back. I'm getting that. It's hard to dance with the devil on your back, so shake him off. Shake him off by Florence the Machine. I'm going to make a note. Yeah, and it just feels a bit like what's been happening with me, where I've been talking about the waves coming. It's like everybody's stood in this ocean, right? And the ocean symbolizes life. And sometimes the water can be very clear and very still. And, it's easy to move through. But sometimes life can whip up a storm. And sometimes those waves can, get really quite high and really quite, they can really knock you off your feet. And then before you know it, the water's rising above your head and you're doggy paddling and you're getting exhausted. And so somebody's taking in the bin. And just when you think that you can't take anymore, life keeps rolling the waves at you. And there's like undercurrents trying to drag you off. And it's just, you just think, how can I possibly go on? And yet you keep doggy paddling, right? You do your best to stay above water, because what else can you do? And so when you feel very, very exhausted because life keeps throwing these waves at you, and you're just praying for, a calm day, you can get very, very... It's like, I don't look my best, right? I don't have the energy to put makeup on or get in front of the camera, or I don't have the energy to go for a walk. I'm very hot and sweaty. I did curl my hair last night, but again, I've got really hot and I've just kind of like tied it up. So it's kind of like not being ready to face the world, right? You've got this beautiful opportunity and this wonderful healing space. It could be that you don't feel ready to leave the healing space as well. Again, with this fear, it's like that time with the Time Master, that spa days was so pleasurable that maybe it's something to do with like with all this water energy, right, which symbolizes emotion, right? Water symbolizes emotion, social connections, love. It's like you've been so immersed in, it's like the energy of the King of Cups. You've had such a good time. You've enjoyed it so much, but now that, the ship is leaving again, the ship's repaired and it's time to leave, you don't want to go because you've become, it's like maybe you've had like, I don't know, you've had like a seaweed wrap and all this kind of stuff. It's like you're so a part of this. It's like, how could you ever go back to what you were before? But I want to say you are doing, it's something about like with equality as well. It's like you are doing right, and you're reaching the same point. You're going back into, it's kind of like Empress energy, but something higher than that. Kind of not quite Empress energy and not quite High Priestess energy, but it has this deep understanding of the cosmos, right? Because it's you have the knowledge of the time master. But again, the message is you are not alone. You're carrying this sacred knowledge. You're carrying their energy with you, because if it's something like, if this person is completely like the person in the place, like their energy is completely infused with each other, right? With the colors, it's like by being in their presence, by being in their realm, you start to look more and more like them. It's kind of like when in Rome, do as the Romans do. It's like perhaps you see something like, can you see like she's got all these bits of seaweed in her hair and stuff? It's like perhaps you're coming back, perhaps looking a bit kind of like sun bleached and you know, tousled hair, because you know, no makeup, your hair's a mess because it's full of sea salt, and you know, you've got bits of seaweed everywhere, and you're kind of looking a bit scruffy, right? So you're not looking your best. Something like that, because it's like, just has this like this, like you've become more like them. You've become more like them, or you've become more like the place. So there's this fear about carrying their energy back with you, which I want to say is not a fear worth entertaining. And then with resilience and equality, it's like something about them sharing their energy with you, right? That you becoming more like them is actually making you perhaps more capable of, perhaps it's something to do with their attitude, or perhaps this is something that you're giving to them. It's making you more independent or strong or resilient or knowledgeable or better able after a spa day, right? When you're well rested and you turn back up, it's like you're now more able to bear your responsibilities. So there was this thing here, right, about at this point in the reading, it's quite easy to bear those burdens. It's something like, because I did have this thing again, like I get a lot of stuff through visually, and it turns out, you know, to be something in the reading. So I had this thing about the kestrel right on my hand, and I have held a hawk. I can't remember particularly what kind of bird it was, but I have done that where I've held like a falcon or something, and they're very heavy, and the longer you have your arm out for, the heavier it gets. It's kind of like carrying shopping bags, right? You can put stuff in a bag, you're carrying it, it's quite light. You know, half a mile down the road, it's like the heaviest thing you've ever carried. So it's like here you feel, perhaps after some kind of, it's like at this point in the reading, you felt quite comfortable bearing the weight of some kind of responsibility, the weight of the world on your own. Where, you know, at this point, when it's kind of like when you come out of the fairy tale, right? When you come out of the fantasy, and it's kind of like reality hits, you know, you come back down to earth and reality hits. It's like that thing that felt very, very manageable. It's almost like you could balance it on one hand, right, and do something else at the same time. You could multitask. When reality hits, it's becoming this heavy burden that's actually weighing down on you and becoming quite difficult to carry. But it's like back over here, despite having some kind of fear, the reading ends with you returning to this ease, right? Being able to handle your responsibilities with ease. It's quite light, it's quite achievable, it's quite manageable again. After this feeling of kind of like maybe it all getting in your head, right? It's like, because it's like all fear, and fear is thoughts, right? So it's like you have this fear of, it's almost like it becomes something to do with like it's here and then it's like it's all in your hair, right? It's like it's like these responsibilities are all tangled up in your mind. So it could be that kind of thing, like when you have too many things to think about. I'm kind of going into a phase like this myself where I'm having to remember a lot of dates. I'm having to really manage my schedule quite well. You know, there's just quite a lot of stuff being thrown at me all at once. So it could be like that. It's like this is, all these thoughts are turning into like this tangle in your mind, and it's getting overwhelming, right? It's less manageable. If you have one thought at a time, it's manageable. But when you have this kind of like all these thoughts all at once, or all these responsibilities, or all these things that you have to juggle with your time all at once, it becomes this, it becomes much more harder, right, to handle. And equality and seahorse. It just feels like he comes to remind you, right? He comes to remind you of your power. He comes to remind you of your, to lend you his support, right, with the seahorses, because it's like he's come closer, right? And when, it could be something like, it could be that there's a connection for you where when this person feels far away from you, you know, very quickly your burdens overwhelm you. But the closer their energy is to you, the stronger you feel, right? It's like this person, the way this person makes you feel, perhaps because they're very knowledgeable, or perhaps they're very supportive, you know, just by being in proximity to this person, or just being able to have a conversation with this person, gets you back into this sovereign energy. There's something really interesting about the numbers as well. So these cards are like this, right? With the, see, it seems like they're really fun, right? It feels like they're a good time, like they make you feel good about yourself. So the numbers are 14, 14, 41. So we have these number patterns again right at the end of the reading. It doesn't occur anywhere else in the reading, but how you had that, you know, 40, 41 there, you've now got this 14, 14, 41. So it's, I mean, this would be a mirror number, right? But it just really seems to be emphasizing that there is this connection, and that it could be a connection where you mirror somebody, you know. It could be a connection where you've also got like 44. So do watch out for fours, because you had 44 here, didn't you, in the first reading? 44. And I said, watch out for the synchronicities, watch out for 44. And then this is 44. And then this is kind of like, I mean, it is 44, right? If you put them together. Do you see? So what? Maybe watch out for number fours. But that is your reading now. That's how this story ends. It could be, because you've got this wolf card on the underline as well. Interestingly, with this movement and speed card, where it's like she's traveling between two different cities. So it could be that perhaps your partner travels for work, or perhaps you and your partner live in different cities or different countries, because this wolf story tells this this myth about these two deities who marry each other, but they find it difficult to live in each other's country. It's like one finds one country too hot and the other finds the other country too cold, so they have to find this like they spend a bit like Hades and Persephone, right, where Persephone spends 6 months in one country, six months in one country, 6 months in the underground, and 6 months in the overground. It's like they share their time between the two places. So it could be something like that, where perhaps you're in a relationship, or you're getting into a relationship where you have different hometowns, different countries, different realms, and so you each have your responsibilities, because everything's doubled, right? The strength card is doubled, the resilience card is doubled, and there's a lot of this kind of like doubling energy, this equality energy. Again, this is equality. So it's like, how do you divide your time equally between these two places? How do you share the burdens equally? So there's a lot of this, how do we make things equal here? And I want to say there is a lot of love and an intention on both sides to help each other with each other's burdens. So when you hit that fear threshold, because it does feel like this is very overwhelming to you, I want to say, don't panic and run, right? Don't let the fear overwhelm you. like come back to this, right? Come back to the connection. So can we get some advice about that? Because the fear threshold, I think, will come up. I think it's natural for it to come up. But it's like, don't panic, right? Persevere, which is something that you have a lot of experience in. Driver's license, somebody could be getting the driver's license. So help Pisces with that. Help Pisces with the, whatever that is. How do they get through that point? Or what should they do when they hit that? Slow motion. So just slow down. If you feel like perhaps things are going too fast, you know, and you need to say, oh, I need a little bit more space. I need a little bit more time to think. Again, the time master, time's relative, but maybe just slow things down. Slow motion. It just gives you a, like, when you slow down time, it gives you a little bit more thinking space, right? So it could be something like that. I wish that I could hate you, my baby. The colours are fading out. Is it quiet where you're sleeping? Your record's my empty house. I wish I knew what you were feeling. So again, it feels like when you're away from this person, when they're not next to you, you worry about what they're doing, or, you know, the fears start to creep in when they're not close to you. But when they are close to you, you feel like, I don't know. It says, fighting every instinct while you hold your pride. Back to the beginning, right? It swallows my mind. You're all that I think about. I even see you when I'm dreaming. I wish that I could hate you, my baby. I wish that when I left, you'd have chased me. I didn't want to change, but you made me. And now you're telling all your friends that I'm crazy. It's hard to believe that you ever really loved me. I made believe that you cared when you touched me. I know I'll be moving on in slow motion. It feels like your own fears. I don't know if this is genuinely a correct reading of the connection, or if it's just when they're not around you to reassure you. It's like you, tell me about equality and sovereignty, please, for Pisces. Equality and sovereignty. Morning's 11 by the magic numbers. I feel like somebody else had this recently. You're in denial, and I know. What's my name? I don't know. Baby, if you telephone, I can meet you in the morning. Call me if you're on your own, and maybe I can meet you in the morning. Morning's 11, the feelings are severed. I can't feel anything at all, but I would die for you. And all that I've ever seen, all that I've ever been, all that I ever was, I would die for you. I had it all, but I never thought I did. So maybe it's just, you know, you miss this person, and when you miss this person, you get in your head. So you need to call them so that you can meet and have that reassurance, possibly. But you are, I want to remind you that you are, whoever this person is for you, you are showing as an equal to them. You know, you are showing as fully capable of handling yourself and the situation, and even time itself, as they are. I don't know, Pisces. I hope this reading is really, really helpful to you. It's been one. It took a few days as well for the Pisces energy to kind of like start to come through. I kind of had this slight void before the reading started, but again, I feel like it was because I was being held in this space that I needed, because I needed to do that Aquarius Pisces conjunct healing that I needed to kind of like do, and also to kind of like prepare me energetically with these kind of visions and this information so that I could do your reading. But again, you've got this kind of like stalling energy. So how the original reading kind of got to a certain point and kind of stalled and got interrupted, and I had to kind of like go back and kind of like redo the cards, and it has this feeling of kind of like almost going backwards. But maybe you are traveling by air, right, and you're bringing somebody back with you. I don't know. Interesting reading. I'm gonna leave it there. I hope it was helpful to you. I'm definitely starting to feel like I need a break, so to take care of yourselves, surrender to the sweetness, remember your own sovereignty and how fully capable you are of handling those burdens. Don't get stuck in your own head. You're going to be fine, Pisces. You are not alone in this. Take care. I'll see you again soon. Bye, friends. Pisces, I don't know how I'm this stupid. I don't know how I missed the absolute obvious there. The magic numbers. That's what you're seeing, right? You're seeing the signs and synchronicities. You're seeing the magic numbers. Duh.